A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to season number 2 of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. Tyler Johnson here with you, joined by Jordan Dalton, Nick Leisure. Gentlemen, how we doing this evening?
You're muted, JD. But I'm doing great. I'm ready to talk Buckeyes. Football season is back, and I couldn't be happier and ready to go.
You didn't want to hear me talk anyways. I'm doing good. I'm really excited. Getting the office all set up, get some Buckeye stuff up there soon. But yeah, it's going to be a really fun season. A lot of question marks, especially on offense with the quarterbacks, and we're going to get into it. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, fun episode planned for tonight for sure. Before we get to it, guys, be sure, once again, drop a like on tonight's video. Subscribe if you're brand new to the Network 216 YouTube channel. Again, it's free to subscribe. We're so close to 1,700 subscribers, and that puts us only 300 away from our goal of reaching 2,000 subscribers. So be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new to Network 216. Also, we do have a new Discord that you can explore. You can join the Discord for free, kind of see what it's about. But if you decide you want to join the Discord monthly, it's only $10 per month. You get betting slips courtesy of Network 216 bettors that we currently have. But also, one thing we have going on right now is a lot of Ohio State recruiting updates. And I'm sure you guys want those updates. Only $10 a month to get that information. And now we're going to bring in our guest for tonight. He is the host of Locked On USC and also writes for wearesc.com, Mr. Mark Culkin. Mark, how you doing this evening?
What's up, gentlemen? How you doing?
Doing good. We really appreciate you joining us. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, the Pac-12 has had a little bit of movement, I would say. So just want to start off with what led to ultimately the demise of the Pac-12 conference, going from where it was to where we are now?
Well, it starts with poor leadership, and it starts poor leadership with the Pac-12, but it also starts with the poor leadership with the athletic directors and the school presidents who allowed it to get to this point. And when you remove USC and to a lesser extent UCLA, what you're doing is you're removing the LA footprint from that conference. Mm-hmm. And USC is West Coast football. And when you don't have that anymore, it's hard to establish any type of foundation around the other programs. So ironically, USC, they pull the ripcord. They go and they join the Big Ten Conference. UCLA is coming along with them. And one of the big issues for USC was, why are we making the same amount of money, getting the same piece of the pie that a Washington State, an Oregon State, or any of the other programs who don't bring as much to the table? So what happens at the 11 o'clock hour, 59 minutes to go? Oregon and Washington say, hey, let's go stay in the shadows of USC because we don't have that LA market. We need to play in LA, and we'll take pennies on the dollar. That's the dysfunction of the Pac-12.
So one of the questions that I have with this whole scenario is what happens to those teams that didn't make a move? They're kind of stuck in limbo right now. Stanford being one of them, and I know we're a football podcast. We talk a lot of football, but Stanford is a very elite school in terms of
they're your Northwestern of the Big Ten.
What was that?
They're the Northwestern of the Big Ten. They're the academic school.
Yeah, very academic, but then they also have a lot of elite athletes in sports that aren't football. So, like, where do you see these remaining 4 schools dispersing? You think they follow to the Big Ten, or is the Big Ten? You think
If it was up to me, I would trade out the Pacific Northwest, and I would have brought along the Bay Area schools. I think it just, number one, you keep USC's natural traditional rivals with Cal and Stanford, as well as it helps with traveling and all the other ancillary stuff. I think what's really going to happen, and everything's really fluid. The ACC looks like they're going to gobble at least Cal and Stanford up, and now they're starting to have some talk about both Oregon State and Washington State. I think if we're all being honest with each other here, in the next 5 to 10 years, we're all going to be just a different organization, 60 really good football programs, no more NCAA, and we'll still be, the schools will still be part of conferences for the other sports, for basketball, the Olympic sports, but everyone will now become Notre Dame, so to speak.
It's interesting. That's a really good point that you bring up there, because it's funny, before the show we were actually chatting about this, about the possibility that, you look at it right now, the Big Ten is stacked from top to bottom now, adding USC, UCLA, you're adding Oregon and Washington too. But then you look at the SEC. The SEC just added Texas. They just added Oklahoma. There's talk that they could add Florida State. They could add Clemson, to where what I was saying is at some point the Big Ten and the SEC could have all the top teams, and why would they even need to be in the NCAA at that point? Because they have all the good teams. So what's the point of them even being a part of the NCAA? But something I wanted to ask you as well, Mark, is obviously this was a year ago. USC made the decision to join the Big Ten. What was really the decision to join the Big Ten opposed to other conferences they could have joined? And also, what was your reaction to them joining the Big Ten?
So my reaction was, finally, and it wouldn't have mattered if it was the Big Ten or the Big 12 or the SEC or whatever. It was the fact that they were getting away from the perception that USC is a part of a program or part of a conference that doesn't care as much as maybe the Big Ten or the SEC. But part of it, again, a lot of this is USC's fault. They tend to create their own issues at times. It took them finally breaking away from their old school ways of, let's just hire one of our famous old football alums and make them an athletic director. They went out and they actually hired somebody with experience. And Mike Bone and Brandon Sosno, they brought some new, fresh ideas in, kind of cleaned house a little bit. And before you know it, USC is now a member of the Big Ten starting next year. They're going to be breaking ground this year on a new, football high-performance facility. So a lot of things are in motion now. And it was a matter of USC taking football serious again. But they had to kind of get their own foundation rebuilt. Between the sanctions and the Clay Helton era, Troy had crumbled, and they were rebuilding it back up.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts? Because here's another one that was interesting. There was some reports, and I don't know how accurate they are, you would know better than anybody, that USC wasn't necessarily thrilled that Oregon was following them to the Big Ten. Is there any truth to that?
I really don't think, if you talk to the fans, they're gonna gripe about it because it's all about perception. Who's winning the recruiting battles? Who's winning the series? But once USC is winning, and I don't know how many of you remember USC during the Pete Carroll era, there were times, literally, the teams that USC was playing, they knew that they weren't going to win the game. And when USC is at that level, it's hard for anybody to compete with USC. It doesn't matter what conference they're in. So would they not like having, one of their little cousins tugging on their cape all the time and, coming to play in LA? Because what is USC's benefit? There's nothing really that they gain from the Oregon market. What Oregon gets is, again, a recruiting hotbed and the opportunity to say, well, you know what? if we continue to, beat USC or get them, beat them for recruits, again, it changes the optics of things. So again, it depends how you're viewing it. USC was this close last year to making the playoffs.
Yeah.
They really were.
Yeah, Ohio State knows exactly how how it turned out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
USC has some depth this year on defense. If USC has Ohio State's defensive statistics last year, they're in the playoff.
Absolutely.
Now, how much do you think USC pivots their recruiting now? Since they're a part of the Big Ten, are they going to try to branch out to the East Coast a lot more and try to get that talent out here now so they can compete?
That's a great question. USC has always been a national recruiting program, but you always want to lock up your own backyard. They don't necessarily have to leave California, Southern California.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But the dynamics have changed. It's not about recruiting as much. You have to be able to balance recruiting and the transfer portal. So yes, to your main point, yeah, they do have to focus their high school efforts on players that typically play in the Big Ten. They've gone out there and they've plucked a player here and there, from Ohio, Pennsylvania, the East Coast, Southeast. It's always been there. Again, when USC is winning football games, it's not so much USC recruiting, it's USC, all right, here's how many spots we have open. Let's kind of get you guys lined up, and we're going to take what we need as much as you guys want to come play for. They select. It's what you guys are doing. It's what Alabama's doing. It's what Georgia's doing. USC just needs to get back to that.
So I do have a question that's kind of pivots away from USC, but it's more of just a general college football question, especially with all the movement that's been going on. How do you think this affects the playoff? Because one of the big points was the winner of the conference is going to get an automatic bid, and then there's going to be a bunch of at-large bids. Now it only looks like we're going to have 4 conferences, maybe 3 coming down the line. So how do you think that affects the playoff? You think the playoff is just scrapped? What are your thoughts on that?
I haven't really taken a dive into it yet, but I did notice that the SEC commissioners already wants to re-examine the 12 team. And I would love for everybody to just kind of pump the brakes a little bit and let realignment kind of settle. And then there's too much going on too quickly. Let's let the teams settle in where they're going to be. Let's go with a 12-team, format next year. See how that looks. And, if it has to scale back to 8, move it up to 16, I don't know. But, let's get teams or programs situated before we start changing things that we haven't even done yet. We still have this year to go. And then, again, we go right into a 12-team playoff. And the SEC guy is saying, hey, let's re-examine it. That kind of tells me there's bigger plans for what's happening down the road.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's all about money, though. So,
so
the money.
Another good question, Mark, is, and this has been a kind of a pretty highly debated topic on social media among people and other shows out there, is the NCAA and really college football as we know it. Is that completely gone? Like, there's no going back to that previous era of college football. A lot of people are saying the quote, college football is now dead. What are your thoughts on all that?
I agree. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, the Pac-12 is dead. I mean, let me put it to you this way. The Rose Bowl, the history, the tradition of the Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac-12 versus the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Big Ten, playing that game annually on New Year's Day. That ended a long time ago. You can't bring it back. And I don't know what you can do other than just kind of try and keep certain traditions around that we love about the game. But we're migrating towards that NFL model. The NCAA is going to not be around as far as football is concerned. And we'll just have to see how it goes. TV is running this. Fox and ESPN are probably the biggest villains in this whole thing.
Yeah. Wow. It's just crazy to think about. I mean, because again, like I'm 27 years old. We're all pretty much us three are pretty much the same age, and it's just remarkable how we still grew up at kind of a classic era of college football, and it's just now none of it really exists anymore. We don't have any. There's no Power 5 conferences, and it's pretty much the SEC, the Big Ten. You're still going to have the SEC. The ACC, but it's just. It's pretty sad how this is quickly just completely changed. Is it going to be cool having USC, UCLA, Oregon in the Big Ten? Sure. But when you look at it on a map, it's like geographically, this makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
And that was what we had discussed was how is this going to work with schedules? And one of the things that I was proposing just among the three of us was there's probably going to be a West and an East division, and the teams that are closer to the West, whether that's like Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, are going to kind of be in a separate division with those former Pac-12 teams. And then you're going to have like the remaining original Big Ten almost on the opposite side. So I think I could see something like that happening. And then a Big Ten championship could be the first round of the playoff.
Like I said, like I was saying earlier, I really think there's not even going to be a Big Ten. There's not going to be an SEC. There's just going to be a bunch of Notre Dames. Every school. We're talking about scheduling.
Yeah.
They've been able to figure out with football, and they're a member of the ACC conference for everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame every year plays USC, Stanford, the Naval Academy. At one time, Michigan State. This can be done with football. And again, you will be having divisions or pods just for scheduling reasons. And then if you want to keep around, the conference names for, just you kind of make for definition purposes. And like you said, the Big Ten Conference Championship game is a playoff game. That type of thing. I'm sure you can incorporate it. But yeah, if Notre Dame can do it, and Army can do it, and Navy can do it, I'm sure Ohio State and USC and Michigan and Wisconsin, everybody else can figure it out as well.
Yeah, and back in the COVID years, we had talked about it. It was when they had canceled the season, and it was a really big deal. And then, the Big Ten canceled the season, but Ohio State still wanted to play. A lot of the Big Ten teams still wanted to play. It really became evident that Ohio State was driving a lot of the money in the Big Ten. And Ohio State doesn't really need the Big Ten. The Big Ten needs Ohio State. And now that they have these bigger teams, they still have to split the pot. So it's when you're adding all these teams, you're still dividing all the money. And is all that money a fair split if Ohio State's bringing in 75% of the money or whatever it may be? So I think that's definitely along the lines of, hey, Ohio State doesn't need the Big Ten. Maybe they're going to go the independent route or something like that. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you were saying.
Yeah, things are changing, and we just kind of have to adapt with it and see what's the best way to go about it. There's nothing bad about change. It's what are you going to do with it? How are you going to fix it? How are you going to adapt?
Yeah.
Here's a great question in the chat. So Drew asks, if the Big Ten or SEC splits from the NCAA, how would they make a national championship look?
That was like the old days where you'd have the AP consensus, like national champ, and they didn't have a game. It was just that's who they voted was the national champ.
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to. USC, like I said, USC has usually ended up on the short end of the stick, having the opportunity to prove that they're a national champion. Again, it's about perception. I don't know if you guys remember the 2008 season. That was the year Tim Tebow got up on, behind the podium, cried and said, "We'll never lose a game again." Mm-hmm. They lost at home that weekend to Mississippi State. USC lost on the road that weekend at Oregon State. Oregon State, Mississippi State end the season with the exact identical record. Florida and Oklahoma play in the championship game. USC is playing in the Rose Bowl against a Big Ten team that really wasn't worthy of USC's time.
So
And that's happened more than once.
Huh?
And that's happened more than once.
Yeah. It's how this all unfold, like how it all ends up unfolding, who goes where. It is going to be interesting to see when the realignment really is done. But for the last 5 minutes, what we want to get, Mark, is the USC aspect of things from the fan perspective. Is the expectation, do you believe the talent is there now, especially with the improvements made to the defense for USC, that this is a team that not only is going to contend for or make the college football playoff, that under Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, all the talent that is still there, that they're going to contend for a national championship with Georgia and Ohio State?
So the short answer is yes. I tried to allude to how close USC came last year, and it was literally they didn't have the depth to survive a 13-game season, let alone a 15-game season. Caleb Williams, around USC, he's called Superman. He does some really incredible stuff. But USC didn't have the defense to support it. And when you're relying on your first team defense and pieces from your second team as your depth, but nothing behind that, you guys know the longer the season goes on, that third stringer is now second string, and he's playing probably more than he should be. And Lincoln Riley has turned that roster over almost completely in 2 years. So yeah, you can see the difference. USC is bigger, they're stronger, and they're faster. And the defense has been wearing a chip on their shoulder. Players tell you all the time, "Oh, we don't listen to the outside noise." These guys have been telling me off the record. They hear it, they don't want to hear it anymore.
I'm excited. I'm really glad. I'm glad, next season they'll be in the Big Ten, but I think
in Ohio State, there's a lot of history and tradition.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, and USC is one of the blue bloods in college football. So I'm really glad they're back and they're strong, and they are West Coast football. So to have them back, it's really fun for me as a fan.
I have to ask a question of this because I kind of needle the USC fans about this all the time. USC fans are passionate, but they're also, Southern California is a much bigger area. It's more diverse. You don't have everybody's not an Ohio State fan or Ohio. A lot more diversity. So I tell USC fans, look, when you join the big conference, you're going to have to step up your game. What do USC fans have to look forward to as far as the passion? Look, Ohio State, Michigan, one of those great rivalries. I don't know if USC UCLA is as intense. I know USC Notre Dame feels like it is.
Jordan, you can go first on this one.
Okay, I just want to say the Big Ten's a different brand of football than the Pac-12, especially with the weather, and it's still very much an old school style, ground and pound. Not a lot of teams spread it out, and that was like one of the big things when Urban Meyer came up to Ohio State was he changed that whole dynamic for our football team because we were still a very traditional ground and pound team. Jim Harbaugh's kind of bringing it back to a dominant ground and pound, but most of those teams that's how they play. Tough on defense. They're not going to kill you through the air, but they're going to play you hard. So I think that coupled with all the passionate fan bases, every school is a tough away game. Atmosphere wise, some of the teams aren't as great, but it's always fun during Big Ten season. We would always say there's one game every year. You don't know what it is when you look at your schedule, but one game where you get tested. It could be Northwestern, it could be Purdue, but that's the general consensus for Ohio State fans, I would say.
So what do you think will be USC's biggest obstacle to just coming in and not owning the conference, but being the preeminent program, so to speak?
You got to dethrone Ohio State and Michigan. They have to take down both of them, not one or the other. It's got to be both. If they want to come in and really establish that this is going to be their conference, if Lincoln Riley goes in his first year, and I don't know if they're going to end up playing Ohio State. I don't know how the scheduling is going to work, if they'll play both of them or how that's all going to unfold. But if they do, Lincoln Riley sets the tone immediately. If USC comes in here and whether they win at home or even go to the shoe, they win on the road in the Big Ten against Ohio State or against Michigan, that sets the tone that USC is going to be a tough team in the Big Ten. If they beat them both, that's going to have fans in the Big Ten be like, okay, this might be USC's conference. So they got to come in from the get-go and set that tone. If it comes down to their first year and Ohio State and Michigan run through them, I'm just telling you, they're not going to have much respect from Buckeye or Wolverine fans. Even though they should, because they are a perennial program. Like, they will, I'm telling you, social media will be brutal for USC fans if that happens. So they just got to come in and set the tone.
I'm just glad they've done it in the past. So it shouldn't, as far as, the history, it shouldn't be. USC plays in big games. That's why you that's why you go to Ohio State. That's why you go to Michigan. That's why you come to USC. They're playing in big games. To be down, behind with 9 minutes left in the game and drive the length of the field in Columbus and break Bucknet fans' hearts. Watching Stephon Johnson, kind of high step across the end line. USC's been there before. They know how to handle these types of situations. They've gone into Nebraska and left the field with a standing ovation. Michigan will hopefully get to experience that. USC's gone into Penn State before. They beat them. Again, I'm looking forward to this. From the fan perspective, I cannot wait till USC gets to Madison. I will leave the press box so I can feel that jump around. I want to feel that energy. I want to go to Iowa's Kinnick Stadium. I want to see everybody turning around to the Children's Hospital. I want to see the Purdue big drum. I want to see it all. Dot the I.
It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be some awesome environments for you guys to experience. That is one thing about the Big Ten. The one thing about the Big Ten, the commercial says it. Traditions is one of the things it highlights. Every Big Ten team that's in this conference has a tradition that, regardless if you're rooting for that team or not, you have to think is actually pretty cool. Unless you're an Ohio State fan, and every time those Michigan players jump up and touch that banner, you just want to puke. But other than that, the rest of them, it's pretty cool. It's awesome that USC has joined the Big Ten because, Mark, we're going to look forward to having you on when they play each other. It's going to be a lot of fun being able to preview that game with you. But anyway, we just want to thank you for joining us. And even though I did put the YouTube channel Locked On USC in the description, let everyone know where they can find you and find your work.
Yeah, so 5 times a week, Monday through Friday, Locked On USC, 30-minute podcast, all your news, notes, recruiting information, yada, yada, yada. And then every day I'm over there on weareusc.com. I throw out some opinion piece articles as well as do practice and game reports. So there it is. Awesome. weareusc.com is a subscription platform. Locked On USC, free.
Perfect.
Sweet.
Mark, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time and look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Anytime, guys. Take care.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was Mark Colkin from Locked On USC and wearesc.com. Gentlemen, there's a lot to recap. We are going to talk some other things here, but I think the one takeaway that really caught my eye more than anything else, he agrees with us. The NCAA in the next 5 to 10 years will be gone, more than likely.
I think you said something like 2 or 3 months ago about it. You're like, NCAA is going away. I was like,
I was like, there's no way.
And then all this stuff happened, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's going away. And one of the points I made, I was talking to Drew, because Drew's like, I don't even know what's going on in college football. So I was like breaking it down for him. And I was like, one of the things not a lot of people realize is how big Ohio State's football stadium is. Yeah. They're bigger than
it is crazy, Jason.
They're bigger than pretty much every NFL stadium, right?
Yeah.
And they sell out every game.
Even Youngstown State.
And they're not cheap games either. So you know that when Ohio State's playing, they're bringing in the money. And that's the big thing. I think that separates Ohio State from like other college football programs, but it's also a reason why Ohio State doesn't need a conference. And so it's going to be interesting 5 years down the line what happens with that, and just the NCAA going away and college football becoming pro football, with NIL and all this. It's almost just the NFL tier 2 kind of
well,
thing.
And Mark had a good point too. It's like, are they going to do this kind of stuff with basketball too, or like where they're their own separate entity away from football? And it's like, are they going to do it for all these other sports?
Like basketball is going to bring in money, but
yeah,
it's thanks, Drew. It's just basketball is going to bring in money, but they're not bringing in football money.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Football's bringing in a lot of money for these schools. It's $1 billion industry, and it's just one of those crazy situations that I am so glad that I don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Well, Sorry, Nick. You can go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, Jordan's not gonna have to deal with it, and I mean, Gene Smith's not gonna have to deal with it either.
Yeah, he retired. He's out. He was like, I got 3 more years in me, and then he's like,
it's like all this transition and NIL. He's like, well, I've had a good run. It's my time.
Yeah, David, we're actually going to get to that here in a second. But see, what I thought was interesting coming from Mark too is he took it a step further. He doesn't even think there's going to be conferences.
Yeah, everyone's
going to be a note. I thought that was interesting because my suggestion was that we're just going to have Big Ten and the SEC are basically going to have everybody. So that might not even be the case. That's crazy to think about. Everybody's going to – so Notre Dame's going to end up being the one that sets the standard apparently.
It's like,
wow. I wonder if down the line there becomes TV – like because TV's been driving it, right? All these TV deals and teams wanting more money, and that's why they're leaving conferences. They're trying to get more money from TV deals and kind of supplement their schools / football programs. But I wonder if down the line it gets to the point where TV kind of picks and chooses which schools are going to be the premier schools in NCAA football.
Oh, for sure.
And so there's only going to be 50 schools that are going to be premier teams, and the rest of the schools in the former NCAA have to kind of form like a subdivision, and you're going to have like a Division I and then like a Division I, like because they already kind of have it, but like a Division I,
Right.
one or whatever, and you're gonna have like a true national champion from like a bigger school that's on TV and funded and stuff, and like some of these schools are just gonna get left in the dust because like all that money is gonna be going to these programs, and NIL's there. So now like all your top recruits are gonna get big money to go to these big 50 schools, and then like it's just I don't know where it stops. And right now we're in like the Wild West of college football. Yeah, it's crazy.
Sure.
It is nuts, dude. Like, and that's the thing. I don't know if it ever will stop now. I mean, you essentially have college sports doesn't necessarily exist anymore as far as you being an amateur athlete.
It doesn't.
All these guys are now professional. Everyone's a professional athlete now. And it's just crazy. I mean, you talk like
football.
Oh, no. Well, yeah, even football. But like every sport now, man.
There's some athletes that are getting money NIL, but like I feel like football, since they bring in more money, they get more NIL.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So absolutely. These other athletes, like you're not getting a wrestler or a swimmer that's like living off of their salary in college,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and we'll even get into some of that when we end the show, just going around talking about the Scarlet and Gray recruiting radar, because there was some big news that came out about an Ohio State target they missed out on. They apparently got outbid, so now that's a huge part of recruiting now. But a big piece of news came out today, and that is that longtime athletic director for Ohio State, Gene Smith, is going to be stepping down next summer as athletic director of Ohio State. Obviously, this is huge news, guys. First off, your initial thoughts, and then who would you like to see replace Gene Smith? Because I think you guys know where I'm going with this. I have an interesting idea.
It was the first thought I had in my head.
I already know too. Well, I thought it was crazy news. I mean, 18 years. He's got 32 team national titles when he's been the athletic director. I mean, so it's crazy. I mean, he brought in Urban Meyer. He promoted Ryan Day. Like, all of the recent success is all to Gene with the coaching staff changes and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see who they get, because, I mean, that's not small shoes to fill, that's for sure.
And keep in mind with Gene Smith, he was part of the original college football playoff committee to even get this thing to where it is now. It's kind of crazy. I think the timing to all this, everyone's correlating with everything that's been going on, the recent realignment. I don't know if that's true. I don't think we'll ever know, because
he was quoted. He said, when you just feel it's time. But
he said, I'm tired.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on. The timing is just too like NIL, new transition. It's like, it's probably best for the old school guys just kind of step down and see what's next,
Drew has an interesting thought here. Does he try his hand as an NFL? I could see him joining an NFL front office if he gets an opportunity.
Maybe
you
not
see that kind of thing.
Maybe not as a GM, but
you could get an opportunity.
Yeah, more of a maybe a football operations kind of
like
role,
an advisory role type deal.
Yeah, Gene doesn't have that much of a hand in the football program. Like, he oversees it as the athletic director, but he's not involved in the roster moves or bringing in recruits and stuff. So I feel like as a managerial role, he would do really well. But maybe not as hands-on as a GM would need to be in terms of football IQ.
Yeah, and so this brings the possible replacement. So
I already know where you're going.
I know.
How would you – okay. I posted it on Twitter, and everyone there are a lot of people that are for this. Some say too old, doesn't make sense. Jim Tressel coming back to Ohio State to be the athletic director. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Some are like, it makes no sense. He just stepped down as president of YSU. He's older. He probably wouldn't want to get back into it. He probably wouldn't want to go back to Ohio State after everything that he had to deal with on his way out. What are your guys' thoughts on Jim Tressel potentially as the new athletic director?
I doubt that they even reach out to Jim. I don't think it ever happens, but
it's sad.
I mean,
maybe 10 years ago.
Right. No, yes. Now, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. Like 10 years ago, maybe 5. But now I feel like it's just kind of like, would it be cool? Like, sure. But, I mean, that's kind of.
I think it'd be awesome, honestly.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. I think he would actually do a good job. He's filled that role at other universities, and I believe Akron. Was it Akron?
I know he did YSU for sure.
I thought he was
He also coached at YSU. I mean, that's his program.
Well, also, I don't know. I just feel like that's interesting because he would, for nostalgia, it'd be like, yeah, sweet, Jim Tressel's our guy, but I mean, how long would he realistically want to handle all that stress? And I mean, that'd be a lot. Because I mean, you got to think the AD, he's in charge of figuring out a lot of the scheduling, and with these West Coast teams, it would be a ton for him to kind of handle, and it's all new to everybody.
I believe this will be a hire from within. I don't know who the current assistant athletic director is, but I bet that whoever it is the one that they promote.
So there's already been a name mentioned, the name that's been suggested so far, because again, this just happened today, but 11 Warriors Dan Hope was reporting that Washington State Athletic Director Pat Chung is the front runner to succeed Gene Smith. Now, a lot of people don't really know who he is, and rightfully so, but he worked under Gene Smith, and it sounds like the hire is going to come from someone that Gene has previously worked with.
Yeah, that's what I read as well, because I did a little quick at Google, and that's what I saw. And I also saw that they're not even going to start to find his successor until, because the Ohio State needs a new president of the university as well. Because the president stepped down, so they're going to try to fill that role first, and then obviously the athletic director would be next on the docket. But
Gene is until next summer, right? So he's going to be the athletic director until next year.
Yep.
So that gives him a good time.
Next July.
Yeah.
Talk about another plot twist: Jim Tressel becoming president of Ohio State.
Now that I could possibly.
That could be a little bit more manageable. Like it's a bigger role, but it's not as. I feel like being directly hands-on with the football program can be pretty stressful. So
yeah,
that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Also, Drew, appreciate us being the first Ohio State podcast you're watching. We appreciate that. So here's a good question then to follow up on Jim Tressel's athletic director. Which idea to you is more nuts? Jim Tressel becoming Ohio State athletic director, and we got a ton of these suggestions, Urban Meyer becoming the new athletic director of Ohio State. Which one is more ridiculous? So
Urban.
I think Urban is, because don't get me wrong, this dude would do whatever it takes to win. He's also a scandal waiting to happen. So, I don't know. I'd rather have Tressel because I know pretty quiet. Pretty quiet dude for the most part. Urban's the opposite. So, I don't know.
I don't want either one. If I'm
I don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah, I'm kind of the Urban train has kind of run its course. I'm kind of you got us a title, but it's I'm kind of over it now. And
yeah, it was one of those things when he took that Jaguars job. We were like, man, he might kill it in the NFL, but if he doesn't,
yikes,
Dunzo, baby.
Yeah, Dunzo.
Back to big noon kickoff.
So, do you think Urban is more ridiculous than Jim Tressel? Yeah,
for sure.
I seriously thought it was hilarious. And there was a ton of replies for Urban Meyer. I thought that was I was really surprised how many people were like, yeah, he'd be a good athletic director, because they said he'd do whatever it takes. You're not wrong. He would do whatever it takes to win.
Yeah, and then we'll also have 1,000 NCAA violations in 5 years to be like, what the heck?
It would be brutal. Yeah, I just don't think it would ever work. Now, someone actually suggested this was interesting. Tressel is president, Urban is AD. That would be
never.
The dynamic
brutal.
would never work.
All right, people are having fun though.
Yeah,
it's funny.
Sure.
It's funny to see. So, as we're moving on to the last segment of the show here, we're going to talk Jim Harbaugh in Michigan next week, just because that could be a whole long subject in itself. We're going to break down the Scarlet and Gray recruiting radar for the week. So there was some huge news that came out. Ohio State target and 5-star safety / athlete KJ Bolden did not pick the Buckeyes. He went to Florida State. He says it was his dream school, but it's a rumor. He also was offered $2.25 million for an NIL deal. So here's what I have to ask you guys with college football. You have a lot of these athletes, a lot of them 4 or 5-star guys. If you are a college athlete, are you taking the cash? Are you taking that $2.25 million? And let's say, though, Florida State, in this case, let's say hypothetically they're not the best school, though, for you to reach the NFL. Ohio State is, because they made it. Ohio State was very competitive with KJ Bolden, but they didn't offer him that much. But let's say you have another school, Ohio State, that's offering you 1.5, 1.8 million, and there's a good chance you're going to be a first or second round draft pick in the NFL. What are you doing? What are you taking?
Because personally, I'd look for development and long run. But you got to think, some of these kids, man, like they're getting recruited and they're coming from homes that the situations might not be the best. I'm not saying that's KJ's situation, but I mean, when you're throwing $2 million at an 18-year-old, you're like, dang, that sounds pretty sick. I can roll with that, and because you're just thinking about the present and that kind of thing. But I mean, long term, personally, it's like I want to be developed, and it's not about the money. That's just where it's going, though.
There are a lot of these players. I mean, obviously, the most prominent one that I can think of, just because he came to Ohio State first, was Quinn Ewers. Number one quarterback in the country, highly recruited. Came to Ohio State, got a really good NIL deal, and then assessed the situation, and then dipped after 1 year. But he also took that money with him. So I think a lot of these players are like, well, I'm going to grab the money while I can. And we got the transfer portal now. So if I don't like my situation after a year, I'll take my money and run and go somewhere else where I can play. So I think there's going to be some restrictions here. But this is also why, if the NCAA goes away, like how are they gonna regulate whether players can transfer, how much NIL they're getting, what an NIL contract looks like, all these different things. So it's like I said, the Wild West, and I think in KJ's case, he saw the money and he knows that if it doesn't work out Florida State, Ohio State was recruiting him pretty hard. They might want him back in the transfer portal. So take the highest bidder and then assess your situation.
Well, and with KJ, I mean, realistically, Ohio State's safety room is just stacked right now. So, I mean, FSU is probably where he can go play right now and get paid. So it's like, I don't know. Our safety room is just so deep at the moment.
It is.
Like he wouldn't have been a day one player unless he's, getting special teams or something like that, even if he is a 5-star.
Or he's that dude.
He's that dude, yeah.
Which could be the case too. I mean, he's a pretty insane athlete. So anyway, moving on to the next target that Ohio State lost out on. This one really got fans pretty pissed more than anything else. So 5-star defensive end Dylan Stewart is going to be staying home and committed to South Carolina. The reason this is significant, there were multiple crystal balls that had Dylan going to Ohio State, but in the last couple weeks, apparently after he was favoring the Buckeyes and visited Columbus, whether this is true, don't know, so can't confirm or deny. Ohio State's coaching staff basically tells recruits, take your remaining visits instead of let's get this done. Like, let's lock this up. Other schools pretty much will try and tell you to shut down the recruitment. Ohio State apparently tells these guys to keep their options open. Well, they said that with Dylan Stewart, and he stays home with South Carolina instead of going to Ohio State. So here's the question I have for you guys. Larry Johnson, Ohio State's defensive line coach, has been known to be one of the best recruiters when it comes to recruiting defensive line talent. The Buckeyes landed 5-star defensive tackle Justin Scott, which came as a surprise to many. We were actually not expecting that. But they've lost out on Marquise Lightfoot, 4-star to Miami. Now reckon Miami threw a bag at him at the last minute and money. They lost out on Dylan Stewart. If you're an Ohio State fan, how do you feel with this recruiting process? The Buckeyes clearly got a price in NIL, so they're not willing to go above that. But how do you feel about telling recruits to keep your options open instead of secure that, like get them locked in and let's go?
It seems like poor sales tactics.
For real. Yeah, no. I don't know. That's interesting.
I don't know how much truth there is to that because I don't think Brian Hartline is going to be telling a receiver. Brian Hartline doesn't need to be very.
Hartline, I don't believe says it. I don't think Hartline says it. I could see some of these older school coaches saying that though.
Like you think Larry Johnson's saying that to D end?
It wouldn't surprise me if you think about it. When's the last time we landed a 5-star D end? Chase Young.
Right. I think he's just so good at developing that I feel like if he misses out on a 5-star, he's like, well, I can turn this 4-star or like 3-star into something. Obviously.
Wasn't Jack Sawyer a 5-star DM?
He was technically. Yeah, okay. He was that was a home I don't know if that helped, but he was a hometown kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, he was a 5-star. He hasn't played like one yet, but I mean, he was
this is his year this year.
JT.
Yeah, it's another one, dude. He was like the number one recruited. He was like the number
I don't know
one
where I saw someone said he's missed out on a lot of top targets recently, so I must have just read the wrong article or something. I don't know. Maybe I was looking. I know what I read. I was looking at the targets he missed on last year. We missed on 3 5-stars that we were apparently in the lead for. That's my bad. But I mean, I don't know. Like, dude, I feel like you just gotta, once you got these guys, if they're saying that they're really interested, I try and get them there. I wouldn't mess around. Now you can't. You give these guys extra time, dude. Someone throws a bag at them, they're going.
Yep.
So,
I mean, one name. South Carolina is a thriving program right now.
No. I know it's now. I do know it's home for him. Like, in that might have had a huge thing going its way for him. So
why didn't he go to Clemson?
Apparently, I don't. Apparently, the Gamecocks is more home for him, and he wanted to establish South Carolina as a top tier program.
Only like an hour and a half apart.
Dude, I don't. You're welcome to find his phone number or email and ask him. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
Yeah, it looks like we were second, and then Miami was third.
It's probably because of NIL, and he was getting that money.
It's hilarious that Miami was third, considering their huge scandal now they got going on with NIL.
I know.
But something to keep in mind for our Buckeye fans about Miami. The Buckeyes, came out a couple weeks ago. They are still recruiting 4-star defensive end Marquise Lightfoot. So something just to keep in mind, that recruitment might not be done yet. And always keep in mind with these NIL guys, it's never done until that letter of intent is signed on signing day, because you can flip anybody. Everybody has a price at this point. So now 2 decisions are coming up that are huge, though. As we wrap up the show here, 2 decisions that are going to be huge. First off, we have the commitment of 5-star defensive end Edric Houston that Ohio State has been crystal balled the favorite for, I want to say, a month and a half now. He is a teammate of KJ Bolden and Dylan Raiola, who are both committed to Georgia. So they all go to the same high school. How do you guys feel about wrapping up this one? I know Alabama is really making a charge here for him at the end. It sounds like Georgia's just grown to the fact that they're not going to land him, it sounds like. But do you believe the Buckeyes can hold off Alabama here? If you look, Alabama's flipped 2 to 3 guys. It was 2 or 3, I can't remember. The last 3 days now, they've been flipping multiple recruits, and now it's reports that they're going after Houston hard. He actually visited Alabama a couple weeks ago. Do you guys think the Buckeyes can seal the deal on Houston, or do you see him getting away from Larry Johnson once again?
Not if Larry Johnson's telling them to sign with Bama.
Like, yeah, you should just go over there. It'll be fine. You'll be all right over there.
No, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, missing out on these other guys kind of opens up an opportunity, at least for the recruiting class. We don't have that staple defensive end talent that you'd have to come in and compete with. So who knows, man?
I think it's to a point you're going to have a meltdown on social media if they miss him. It's going to be brutal. They're going to criticize Jim Knowles because he gets plenty of it, apparently, on the recruiting trail. It's going to be – the Buckeyes need to get Edric Houston, or there's going to be – I don't even want to think about it. Social media is going to be terrible, much like what happens if the Buckeyes ever lose a game. Like, it's just brutal. But then there's one final guy to talk about. He commits this weekend. That is 4-star. I know, shocker. The Buckeyes are a favorite for him. 4-star wide receiver Jeremiah McClain. Do you guys think the Buckeyes have been favored for a while? Missouri's been making a push for him at the end as they're also in the running for the number 1 overall recruit. Do you guys think the Buckeyes can get this deal done? The reason this is interesting is because the Buckeyes have been favored for a while, but Missouri's made a push. He's also taken a couple of visits since visiting Ohio State. Do you guys think Brian Hartline gets this one done, or do you see them going to another wide receiver?
We don't need any wide receivers.
I was just about to say, like, how many more receivers?
I think we could miss out on him just because of that fact, though. We're bringing in so much talent.
I mean, we have 2 more 5-star receivers committed for next year already for 20.
But if you guys think about this, though. We brought in 4. So we brought in Inus, 5-star, Carnell Tate, 4-star, Noah Rogers, 4-star, Bryson Rogers, 4-star. That's 4 receivers we brought in this past year.
Yeah.
Normally adding 3 to 4 wide is pretty typical, though, for Ohio State.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously he's not going to – I mean, unless he just balls out, I mean, he's not going to play day one, you know. So it's like if he's willing to take a year to develop, and I think that's where Hartline is a good salesman too, because he's like, dude, I had an NFL career. I had a successful career at Ohio State. Like, I'm going to develop you to be an NFL guy. If he's willing and wanting to take that coaching, then sure. I mean, that'd be great to get him. But, I mean, if he wants to play now, Ohio State might not be the best fit, obviously. But
where is he from?
Got this one I got to look up just to be double checking this. Missouri. He's from Missouri.
Okay.
Oregon and Missouri have made the really late pushes for him, but I mean he's been projected to Ohio State for about 2 months now, and they even got another crystal ball yesterday that he was going to Ohio State. Guess we'll find out.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt my feelings any. We're pretty stacked.
Here's my thing. No, listen, we are stacked receiver. Don't get me wrong. But then if we don't get this guy, everyone's going to freak. Everyone's going to be pissed we didn't get him because we were leading for this guy for so long.
Yeah.
That's what's tough about recruiting these days. Like, it can change so quickly, but when you're projected to get someone, and again, those crystal balls, they're not all accurate by any means necessary, but when you're projected for so long to get someone and then you don't, that's never a good thing. Now, I will tell you, not to make Buckeye fans nervous or anything, there were crystal balls for 3 months for KJ Bolden to go to Georgia, and then he went to Florida State, so I don't know what to tell you guys. But as we're wrapping things up, anything else you guys want to add?
I think this was one of our best episodes ever. I really enjoyed talking to you guys.
I would hope so.
I'm just glad to be back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Nick. We
hiatus,
and then he earned his way back onto the show. So
he got the black stripe removed from his helmet.
Back in the good graces.
Oh man, there was something I wanted to talk about before we go off.
You'll think of it right when we go off air.
Yeah. Gosh. I don't know.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, I got nothing, dude.
It's all good. As we're wrapping things up, guys, just as a reminder, please subscribe if you are brand new to Network 216. Again, free to subscribe, and we really appreciate that support. Drop a like on the video as well to really help that YouTube algorithm grow. The link to check out the Discord that's in the description. Be sure, again, check out Mark at Locked On USC. The link for that is also in the description, so be sure to check all that out. We appreciate everyone that tunes into the show. Again, this has been Season 2, Episode 1 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. We can't wait to talk to you guys all again very, very soon. And go Buckeyes.
I remember.
Oh.
I love my homage gear. It's so nice.
Dude, it is. And you just reminded me because it's been so long. Yeah, by the way, we are a proud partner of Homage Athletic Apparel. Go check everything out that they got. We're all repping it. Fortunately, not me because we just did laundry and I've had a chance to find my shirt. But anyway, go check out Homage. If you're a first-time customer, they actually will give you a 15% off on your order. All you got to do is type in your email address. So take advantage of those great offers. And tell them Network 216 sent you. Thank you guys for tuning in, and go Bucks.
Yeah.